before we began. Call to order the meeting of the Board of Directors of the Jersey Village Fire Control Prevention and Emergency Medical Services District for Monday, June 21st at 2021. The time is now 7:01 p.m. And we'll go ahead and call Madam Secretary, do we call an actual roll of the directors for this?
No, I'll just announce that there is a quorum present.
Gotcha. Okay. The agenda threw me off for a moment there. It brings us to citizen comments. Any citizen, and just to be clear, based on, were any of the comments that were received for the fire prevention district? I didn't see any indication, but I'll go ahead and read this off. Any person who desires to address the City of Jersey Village FCPEMSD Board regarding an item on the agenda will be heard at this time in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Unless the subject matter of the comment is on the agenda, the city staff and directors are not allowed to discuss the subject. Each person is limited to 5 minutes for comments to the board. I do not have any comment cards for this meeting. Madam Secretary, do you have any comment cards for this meeting? No? Okay, then we will move on. Part C, consider approval of the minutes of the Fire Control Prevention and Emergency Medical Services District meetings held on February 8th, 2021 and May 10th, 2021. Board Secretary.
Yes, Mayor. The minutes were included in the packet, and just need to have a motion to approve those minutes.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes? All of those against? Any abstentions? The motion passes. Oh, I'm sorry, count me as a yes vote. Still used to the other meeting. Which brings us to item D, election of officers. And I'm going to go ahead and field that one. On May 1st, 2021, the city conducted a joint special election with the temporary board of the Fire Control Prevention and Emergency Medical Services District. As a result, the following propositions were approved by the majority of voters. Proposition A, create the district with a 0.5% sales tax and abolish property tax relief. Proposition B, establish the district's board of directors. With the creation of the district, Local Government Code Section 344.103 requires that the board of directors elect from amongst its members a president and vice president. Additionally, the board shall appoint a board secretary. The person who performs the duties of auditor for the political subdivision shall serve as treasurer for the district. All officers of the FCPEMSD will serve a term of 1 year beginning June 21st, 2021. This item is to address the requirements of Local Government Code Section 344.103. So at this time, we would consider any potential nominations for, we have, I believe, 3 positions that need to be filled by election: the president, vice president, and board secretary. Is that correct? Okay. So at this time, I would consider any nominations for those open positions.
Nominate Bobby for president.
Did we want to do them all at one time, or?
It could be easier if you had a slate in mind. And board secretary.
Nominate Bobby as the president, myself as the vice president, and Lori is the city secretary to fall in line with Mayor Pro Tem and city secretary.
Okay. Any discussion on that? If there are none, is there I assume you're fielding that as a motion?
I would move that we approve that slate that I just mentioned. Bobby is president, myself is the vice president, and Lori Cootie is the secretary.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All of those against? Any abstentions? The motion passes. That brings us to item E on the agenda. Consider resolution number 2021-02, establishing the Fire Control Prevention and Emergency Medical Services District's fiscal year and setting forth procedures for adopting the district's budget. Lori Cootie, City Secretary, or I guess Board Secretary, correct? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So with the approval of the recent election and the creation of the district, they approved Proposition A and Proposition B, and with that, the board now needs to consider a resolution that will set the district's fiscal year and that will adopt procedures for adopting the district's budget. And the resolution that was included in the meeting packet has been created to kind of follow the same process that we do for the CCPD. So the district year will start October 1, and the budget process is changed so that it accommodates the new SB2 rules.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Any discussion on this item?
Makes sense to do the fiscal year same as crime control and prevention. I would propose we do that.
And I believe all of them share, or
All of the procedures also have been set up identical to the crime control.
gotcha. Any further discussion? I would entertain a motion at this time.
I make a
Sharon,
motion that we approve resolution number 2021-02.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any against? Any abstentions? The motion passes. The resolution passes. Which brings us to item F, consider resolution number 2021-03, authorizing the execution of a management agreement with the city of Jersey Village, Texas. And I believe our board secretary is fielding this one as well.
Yes. So this item is to approve a management agreement between the board and the city of Jersey Village. And basically that management agreement will enable the city to take care of all of the administrative tasks for the district.
All right, thank you. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, I entertain a motion at this time.
I move we approve resolution 2021-03.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All of those against? Any abstentions? The resolution passes. All right, folks, so now we are going to adjourn the fire control, I'm sorry, let me get this right. The Jersey Village Fire Control Prevention and Emergency Medical Services District meeting of the Board of Directors. And we are now going to move into our regular session council meeting. I now call to order our meeting of the Jersey Village City Council for Monday, June 21st, 2021 at 7 p.m. Madam Secretary, do we have a quorum present?
Yes.
Great, thank you. We're going to begin on item B1, Invocation Pledge of Allegiance. We have Scott Basso, Pastoral Care Programs and Global Missions for Foundry United Methodist Church here in Jersey Village.
Good afternoon, everybody. Do I begin with the Pledge of Allegiance? The prayer, okay. Please bow your heads with me. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks and praise for the law enforcement, first responders, residents, and leaders of Jersey Village. We ask you tonight to guide the council's decisions, leaning on your discernment and values for deciding what's best for the community at large. Please guide, inspire, and lead with your Holy Spirit the outcomes derived from this meeting. We thank you for your holy presence and pray for the best possible outcomes on tonight's agenda and beyond. We reverently come to your throne seeking clarity and counsel in this board's decisions. It is in your holy and powerful name that we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you, Scott. We're now going to move to presentations. We have two different presentations, one for Employee of the Month and another of life-saving and meritorious conduct awards for our police department.
Mayor and councilors, I'm pleased to introduce you to our June 2021 Employee of the Month, Captain Trent Harrod. Captain Harrod has been a volunteer firefighter with the fire department since 1991, a part-time firefighter since 1999, and he finally came on full-time with us in 2020. Captain Harrod has such a positive attitude and a willingness to help and take the lead on any project. As a leader in the department, he has shown his crew the important aspect of working alongside every other department. Captain Harrod is a teacher and inspires his crew to want to learn. He encourages and challenges others to excel and perform at higher than normal levels. One of the examples of his desire to go beyond his normal job was him and his crew adopted an elderly woman at the senior living apartments and every week went to her apartment to check on her. This goes well above the expected job performance and shows how caring he is to encourage his staff to think outside the norms. Captain Harrod is a true inspiration to his crew by mentoring and leading them every day with a positive attitude. He always seeks opportunities to teach his new crew the knowledge he has obtained over his 30 years of service. Captain Harrod is a true motivator. You can see this every day when his crew comes eager to work and learn alongside of him. Captain Harrod understands our volunteers as he was once a volunteer, and he thinks about our volunteers to make sure that their priorities are heard as well. He invites them to be a part of the team and always considers them during his decisions. Captain Harrod is the true example of the employee we all want to have working for us here in Jersey Village. Captain, congratulations and thank you for your service to Jersey Village.
I'm still one of the old school guys with paper. Mayor, council, good evening. Tonight, Chief Bitts and I, it's an honor and privilege for us to get to present some recognition awards to our telecommunications specialists and to our officers for their quick thinking, their professionalism, and some heroic acts. But before we get to the presentations for the awards, Chief Bitts is going to go ahead and read the summary of the events that happened back in February of 2020 last year for the Life Saving Award, and then I'll be reading the summary of events for the Meritorious Conduct Board. We had planned on doing this last March, but I think everybody knew what happened last March, so we'll do it tonight. So we're getting here to honor them. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Mayor, council members, citizens of Jersey Village, on Sunday, February 9th, 2020, at approximately 12:06 a.m., 911 communication specialists Tenitris Tina McKenzie and Amber Rosas received a 911 call informing them of an accident and that the vehicle was on fire. The accident was in Harris County, but the quick decision by both dispatchers to dispatch our officers instead of Harris County deputies was instrumental in saving the life of this driver. Officers Hall, Gonzalez, Lieutenant Hawley, and Sergeant Brandon responded to the 12,000 block of FM 529 where the motor vehicle accident occurred. Upon arrival, officers observed the vehicle on fire and the driver trapped inside. Officers attempted to control the fire and extinguish the flames with their fire extinguishers, but the fire began to intensify. Officers were able to gain entry into the vehicle through the passenger side door. The driver was passed out and trapped in the driver's seat. Officers began to work together to extract the driver from the vehicle. These officers' bravery and the quick thinking on the part of the 911 communication specialist prevented the driver from burning up inside this vehicle. These individuals are being recognized for their bravery and quick actions taken during this life-threatening situation at tonight's City Council meeting. The officers showed courage and a willingness to sacrifice their own safety to save the life of another.
camera settings are terrible today. I had them on a crime scene a couple weeks ago, and I've got the settings completely. Tell you what will work. Let me make sure I get a good one.
At this time, I'm going to go ahead and read the summary of events that happened back on January 1st, Friday night at 12:42 a.m. Lieutenant Heath Hawley, Corporal Aaron Polster, Officers Jonathan Hall, Officers Ryan Israri, Isaac Gonzalez, and Daniel Rodriguez responded to a disturbance at a call at the Whataburger. Lieutenant Hawley, Corporal Polster, and Officer Israri were the first to arrive to find a suicidal subject stabbing himself in the chest. They attempted to get him to stop stabbing himself with verbal commands. They deployed their taser, but it had little effect on him. He continued to stab his chest and started slashing his throat multiple times. The quick thinking to transition to a less lethal beanbag round allowed them to stop him from continuing to stab himself. The subject was restrained while being transported by the Jersey Village Fire EMS to a local hospital with multiple self-inflicted knife wounds. He arrived in critical condition and was taken into surgery, but he succumbed to his injuries. These officers demonstrated their ability to handle the most challenging situations in a professional and compassionate manner. Their actions went above and beyond the call of duty, exhibiting exceptional courage, extraordinary restraint, and presence of mind in an attempt to save a human life. These officers are worthy of receiving the Departmental Meritorious Conduct Bar. This medal is awarded to officers for heroic deed and exceptional meritorious conduct involving exemplary courage, risk, and danger to an officer's personal safety. The officers showed courage and a willingness to sacrifice their own safety to save the life of another. These actions are a true testament to the profession they chose to protect and serve. Please join me in congratulating these brave men.
thank you to all of you, to your continued commitment to our city and to the community at large. It's really an inspiration to all of us. Thank you. We're going to move on to item D, citizens' comments. Citizens who have signed a card and wish to speak to the City Council will be heard at this time. In compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, unless the subject matter of the comment is on the agenda, the city staff and City Council members are prevented from discussing the subject and may respond only with statements of factual information or existing policy. Citizens are limited to 5 minutes for their comments to the City Council. The first card I have is from Mark Malloy.
My name's Mark Malloy, past City Council member for the City of Jersey Village, Texas. Citizens' comments for the 06/21/2021 City Council meeting. Please make my verbal comments and documents given to the City Secretary a permanent record of this meeting. And the first question I wanted to ask is, you know, I'm looking at this public comments card that's at the back of the Civic Center here, and it says, if you would like to address City Council, please complete and give to the City Secretary before the meeting begins. You will have 3 minutes for non-agenda item topics and 5 minutes for agenda item topics. So now what is the ruling on that?
The rule, as long as I've been on council, is that it is 5 minutes, so you could ignore the 3-minute aspect.
Okay, so anyway, I've come tonight to this evening's Jersey Village City Council meeting to ask the city government to give the citizens of Jersey Village, Texas, the full 20% homestead exemption instead of the 14% homestead exemption that the city is giving them at this time. I am also asking that the city council give the individuals that are 65 year and older and also disabled individuals the additional homestead exemption that would be increased to $160,000 instead of the $75,000 exemption that the city government is giving them at this time. Harris County and the city of Houston both are giving their citizens the full 20% homestead exemption and the additional $160,000 exemption for the over 65 and disabled. So anyway, I've looked at the information that you have here on your workshop meeting that you had earlier this month, and it says that there is interest from the City Council to see the homestead exemptions increased to 20% and to increase the over 65 and disabled exemption as well. A breakdown of those numbers are on the next page. So anyway, when I'm looking at this information, if you give the additional 6% for just the standard 20% homestead exemption, from what I'm seeing from your information, it's showing that the average property tax savings for homeowner would be $134.78, and the total amount of loss to the city by giving that additional 6% is a total of $256,357. I'm also wanting to add, looking at this information about what is here with the over 65 and the disabled. You've got a chart here that shows the current $75,000 exemption, and you've got the numbers going all the way up to an additional $180,000 exemption. If you chose to give them the $160,000 additional exemption that City of Houston and Harris County is giving the citizens, it's showing that the average property tax savings for disabled and for 65 year and over would be $614.95. And it says total loss of city revenue, and I don't exactly understand what you're showing here in this number, because it's showing total loss of city revenue at 19 comma 678. Now, is that $19,678 or is that 19,600,000? What's the number? Do you guys, can you look at your information there and see?
Those
from
are
the chart?
single dollar amounts.
So,
It's actual $19,000.
so the loss to the city per homeowner is $19,678?
You're looking at the disabled homeowner, of which there are only 32 such homes in the city, and therefore you're talking about the total loss of revenue to the city.
Okay. So basically, that's what I was here to ask, is to just basically give the citizens of Jersey Village the same exemptions that the city of Houston and Harris County is giving the citizens that they have in their
Thank you, Mark.
jurisdictions. Thank you.
Next up, I have Michael Stembridge.
Michael Stembridge, 15422 Jersey. First of all, this is not the agenda item I'm speaking on, but Resolution 2021-26, item GI, letter I, like India, we do support that. And it looked like in the packet that you are trying to expand the homestead, the disability, and the elderly exemptions. And we don't know I know they struck out the old amount, so I'm logically syllogizing that you're going to increase the exemption, and we'd like to thank you so much for that. That's like really, really good. Okay, I have a couple questions about the elevations. I've been wondering who picks the home elevations on JV's FEMA home elevations FY lists. And also, I don't understand why people selling to the city in the tiers 3 would care if other got home elevations if they're selling and then they're rebuilding new elevated homes. I've always wondered who stopped East Jersey from receiving home elevations when others right down the street on West Jersey got them, and why? Why was ours and other East Jersey homes never put into a FEMA home elevations applications packet or package by JV, like others have been every FY? Also, was that the argument to create not the desperation, but the immediacy of the tiers being formed? Okay, and we're in a split or a joint title with my wife's grandmother, and we'd have to split half with her, and so this tiers doesn't really help us. I'm not saying never, but this is a seller's market in the free market, and we're not saying never, but not right now. Our home is paid for, and we have been begging you all for a FEMA home elevation for almost half a decade or 4.5 years, whatever. And we pay property tax, school tax to the city. It just doesn't seem fair and equal. We don't want to flood again. We are downstream. We are close to Beltway 8, the choke point. And traditionally, that has been seen as a choke point. And that's why we really, really need a home elevation. The Wall Street improvement pipes are huge. I've seen them. The burnt pipes are huge, great for them. And then all the other work that's going to be done upstream, I know there's rules that you can't flood people downstream, but we are very concerned. We're still begging for a FEMA home elevation, and we don't see why they can't blend in with the new Tiers 3 homes. I don't understand. People shouldn't have to sell their homes to the city and then buy them back and reconstruct it. Why can't people who want home elevations on East Jersey like us and others receive them just like our neighbors just down the street on West Jersey? And we're downstream again, and we need help. The work at Wall and the berm has been proceeding pretty much clockwork about every day. They have been out there in the bayou, but it's not every day. And I don't know if that's weather or county schedules. I know that y'all don't control that. Granted, our bank has been extended out a little bit. And I'm not saying that maybe that's making it narrow, or maybe it's a choke point, but that may just be for construction purposes to create a little bulldozer highway or excavator highway. And they have done some culverts, and I'm assuming they're doing the culverts before they do the widening. But We are just still seeking home elevation. The tiers may be great for some people. And then I thought in my head, well, maybe the people selling don't want us to get elevations or they don't want to see elevations. Who cares if they leave? Why would they care if they go to another street like Seattle or something, just as a hypothetical example? Why would they care what goes on East Jersey? So I'm really stumped here because I'm not understanding, why we were left out, especially if people are going to either sell to the city in the tiers and then buy back and their home's going to be elevated anyway. Why would they care if there's a token FEMA home, elevated home there, or a couple of them for people that paid off their homes and want to stay, or for people that are low income and just don't have anywhere else to go, comparable, And we thank you for the Homestead Exemption expansions and the disability and the elderly. 2021-26, I think it was. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Next card I have is from Marilee Beasley.
Hi, good evening. I'm Marilee Rosine Beasley, and I live at 14910 Lakeview Drive. And I just want to let everybody know up there that I have been in contact with the State of Texas Election Division. I drove to Austin, and I have spoken to Wayne Dofocino about retaining his firm to help me with the lawsuits, because I did find out that I must file a lawsuit to contest the election, which I'm doing, and I must file a lawsuit in order to look at the ballots. So I want to let you know that that's in process. Okay, now, in addition, I have written a lot of letters to the State of Texas Election Division, State of Texas Attorney General, the FBI, 2 letters to the FBI, 2 letters to the Texas Rangers, which is the FBI type agency in Texas. I've also written to TABC. Okay, so, and also I have several handouts. I will share them with Lori Cootie. And so I'm just wanting to let you know that I'm filing a complaint. I have some concerns about the recent election. Barbie Freeman was reappointed as election judge. I and someone else complained about her to the Harris County Republican chair at that time. She stepped down. She was the Republican precinct chair for many decades. She's also been on the Jersey Village Planning and Zoning Committee for several years. And I'm concerned the election was rigged. The votes are usually tabulated by 8:30 p.m. This time the votes were tabulated by around 3 a.m. Why wasn't a Scantron machine used to tabulate the votes? There was a poll watcher. He was male. Is it possible that the election workers were in the women's bathroom changing answers? I don't know. The Jersey Village City Secretary sent a certified letter to the State of Texas Attorney General. It appears that she does not want me to see the ballots. Why? I went to examine the pencils which were used in the election. The Jersey Village City Secretary informed me that the marks from the pencils were indelible. I find that very hard to believe. They appear to be softer than a number 2 pencil. In my opinion, they would be easier to erase. One of the candidates, Ashley Brown, spearheaded a petition to keep the Jersey Village City Hall on this side of the freeway. Many people assisted with that effort. There were 900 people who signed, and she verified the signatures, and about 845 were valid. I understand that Bobby Warren, an attorney, believes that the petition is not valid. Bobby Warren has been on the Jersey Village City Council for a very long time. I have no idea why he believes that there is a problem. Michelle Mitchum ran for the same seat as Ashley Brown. Her husband, Andrew Mitchum, was the previous mayor of Jersey Village. She stood up in City Council and told everyone she was running for the Jersey Village City Council. No one else did that. Is it legal for her to do that? If it is legal, is it unethical? By the way, I sent a letter to the State of Texas Ethics Commission about that issue. I would like an answer to that question. Andrew Mitchum wrote something pretty crummy about Ashley Brown and me that wasn't very nice on a social media website. I do not know why you did that. I find it very sad that Michelle Mitchum won that race. Many people in the community want a regime change. How did Ashley Brown get less than 600 votes? There were 1,288 voters in this election. It was a very good turnout. I don't think I ever saw Michelle Mitchum attend city council meetings. I'm not aware of her being involved. I'm aware that she and Andrew started the Senate Avenue Brewery Pub. Andrew went around proper channels to get the pub. The Jersey Village Planning and Zoning Commission changed an ordinance just so he could have the pub. The JV City Council voted for those changes except for one person, and he recused himself. Andrew sat on the front row during the vote. I investigated the election of May 5th, 2018. James Singleton won by 3 votes. There were a lot of mail-in ballots. I created a survey, and 3 voters indicated they'd never applied for mail-in ballots. Simon Hughes, the opponent, is an attorney with business experience. In addition, an internal affairs investigation report is missing from James Singleton's personnel file. He tried to tell me that it never existed. And that is not true, because I have the memo that Mark Zatkin wrote. Bobby Warren is an attorney. He has a code of ethics he must follow. And so why didn't he insist that the election be investigated at that time? There were other irregularities, too. It turns out that James Singleton came into the election site and spoke to Barbie Freeman. That is a Class C misdemeanor. One of the poll workers was a strong supporter of James Singleton. She shouted out that the count was close while she was in the count room. That's a Class A misdemeanor. I reported my findings to the State of Texas Election Division. The poll watcher reported all of her findings to them, too. I guess they don't have the personnel to investigate elections unless a felony is involved. I also went to the FBI and spoke to a field agent. That was December 2 years ago. I had 10 concerns and documents to support those concerns. It doesn't appear that they have done very much.
That's time, Marilee.
Okay, thank you, and I have plenty of documents.
Thank you,
for all of
Marilee. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Next speaker is Jim Fields.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for allowing me to participate in tonight's meeting. My name is Jim Fields. I live at 16413 St. Helier. Mayor and City Council, I'm asking to not move the City Hall. Here's a reason. I was just looking at some of the information. One of them, we were worried last City Council meeting about the cost. Price is going up. We're not paying for that. That's come out of developers' costs. That's $140 million. So if we're not paying for it, why are we worried about construction costs? The second thing is, what's really concerning me is the $8.2 million we're going to loan, or we're going to give this property to this guy named Raphael, first name basis, which is disturbing, at a city council meeting when it should be the name of the corporation and his last name. If he can't come up with 6% of 8.2 million, which is about $500K, I can come up with within 3 days, and I'm sure you guys can too. Something is very, very wrong on that. Also, it's 100 yards from railroad tracks, 1 mile away from the concrete plant, 1/8 mile from heavy-duty construction company, 1/4 mile from recycling plant. Almost 900 people signed a petition to not move City Hall. Why not put it to a vote? Let's do the right thing. Don't move City Hall, or at least let people decide what's best to do with their monies. And just FYI, you know who wrote the first report on the City Hall? I did, back in like 1998. Anyway, pool safety is another thing I'd like to bring to your attention. I tried to get a hold of, and please correct me, his last name, is it Bassard, B-A-S, Robert Bassard?
Bassford.
Bassford. Thank you very much, Councilman Singleton. This is one day I went to the pool on Saturday. Let me tell you what happened. I just let you know my credentials. I was a water safety instructor, which means I gave Red Cross lessons to lifeguards to teach them how to do pool safety. And I did it for 4 years. This is when I was going to college. Okay, 1, young children 35 years old in the deep end with floaties jumping off a 1-meter diving board. Prohibited. Adults in the deep end catching the children as they come off the large slide. Prohibited. This is all Red Cross. It's not my opinion, it's just safety. More than 1 child on the ladder to the large slide. Prohibited. Teen running along the side and flipping to the pool. That was a good one. Wish I had a skill set, but shouldn't be jumping off the sides. Lifeguard was 4 feet away from him. It's not the lifeguard's fault, it's the management. They just need some instruction here. Baby pool did not have water circulation sanitation issue. They weren't inspecting the pool. Not enough water in the baby pool as the skimmer was dry, hence chlorine tablet was not taking effect. People in the pool with their street clothes. Large ring floaties in the pool obscuring vision. Again, Red Cross, no. Young child, 3 to 5 years old, using a ring floaty, not U.S. Coast Guard approved, just a ring floaty, could easily fall through it and drown. Big no. That was very dangerous. That really is concerning to me. Only 1 lifeguard was watching during the adult swim. This has been brought up to 3 years ago. 2 is needed at all time to watch all areas of pool, because we're one of the lucky cities, probably in the county here, to have a 12-foot deep pool. And you cannot see the bottom. Red Cross rules, you must be able to see the bottom of the pool, period, no matter who's swimming. And I asked one of the lifeguards about that, and she said, well, they're all experienced swimming. I said, what if they had a heart attack? Anyway, lifeguards hesitant to enforce the rules, seldom blowing their whistle. We need to encourage them that said, hey, you're saving lives, it's your responsibility. Double bouncing on the diving board prohibited. Standing on the diving board while people are throwing objects to catch prohibited. Non-instruction patrons to wait after they jumped off the diving board to ensure the landing area is clear. Almost got hit myself. We had an incident that could have been prevented. A young child hit the diving board with his head, wearing a floaty. Had no business doing it in the deep end. None. Again, Red Cross, big no-no. Lifeguards fixating when they should be scanning the pool. And that could be done by having, and I'll be more than happy to take Mr. Bassford to another place and show him how they actually do it because it's a very, very boring job to keep your attention. So I'm not blaming them. However, they do have techniques. You throw like a dummy out there, a little baby dummy out there, see how quick they respond. I'm sure the fire department has drills too. Well, they should have drills at the pool. All right, moving on here. I am going to say defunding the police. It's very scary to me. Every day I go on TV and I see something happening here. 150 officers in Portland walked off their job. I'm glad to see it looks like our city council here supports our police, but I do have concerns. We have two city councilmen.
Thank you, Jim. Your time is up. Appreciate it.
Yeah, can I just give kudos to the fire department real quick, please, Mayor?
I'm sorry, the time's up.
All right.
I
Kudos,
appreciate
fire
that.
department, police
Thank you.
department. Thank you, Mark.
Last comment I have, comment card is from James McDonald.
Last but not least, thank you. First of all, I was going to make a joke about y'all's uniforms and all being matchy-matchy, very cute, but the story about the officers was awesome, even though I was very scared to walk into a room full of officers. Hello, my name is James McDonald, and I live at 16306 Acapulco. This open comment is not sponsored by Mr. Donut. Since my last open comment in May, I want to report that I have gotten promoted to Executive Supreme Leader of the Senate Avenue Brewery Run Club. We still meet on Tuesdays at 7 p.m., and we are accepting new member applications. I also recently won #1 Dad, proclaimed by the McDonald Boys of JV Association. The competition was tight this year due to the number of COVID-related times I lost my cool, and the fact that my wife was also up for #1 Dad. This is the first time winning this in 8 years, so I'm very happy. First on the agenda is the JV Appreciation Committee's June nomination list. I received a record number of nominations this month, a record for the fact that this is the first month we received nominations. In a greedy move, I won't waste my time and my precious 5 minutes listing all the nominees. So I selected those to deserve the most based, I cannot understand my typing. Anyway, it's a secret proprietary criteria that I'm not going to share. This month's winner will be granted one-time use gift certificate to Mr. Donut, located here in JV for a maximum value of $5. I think it says $4.60 plus tax. Thank you, Drew Wasson, for supporting this. This is as much for a coffee and an apple fritter or a donut. Don't make this complicated for me and try to use any leftover amount for half a donut. Let's keep it donut simple, please. This month's nominees are Ashley Brown, nominated by several people for her recent campaign and effort to unite citizens for a cause important to her. Whether you agree with her position on moving City Hall or not, the mere fact that she put her life on hold for several weeks to put up an effort into a campaign and a petition shows that she has a desire to make JV better and for the vision she has. Up next is Sharon Webb, she was nominated, and the sample of her deeds could not go unnoticed. She fed a family for 6 straight weeks when the wife went on bed rest while pregnant and her husband, quote, lost his mind. She has secretly paid for pool passes for families and housed a student to allow them to finish their education in JV. Last but not least is Mrs. Donut, for being the real secret to the amazing apple fritter. When they do not have any ready for me when I walk in, she makes Mr. Donut make one for me on the fly. Without her ability to put up with Danny, we might not have a national treasure located here in our community. The winner for the June 2021 is Ashley Brown. She was supposed to be here, but she couldn't make it. Congrats, Ashley, and if it says you to Ashley, just go with me. Congrats, Ashley. You are entitled to a free coffee donut. coffee or donut at the JV Mr. Donut. I would like to take this opportunity to show my respect for you. We have had a few discussions before and after the election, and we do not agree 100% of the topics that relate to JV, but I respect the effort you put into JV alone this year. I am on official Nextdoor record, which should be official city business record, of showing my support for moving City Hall to enhance the economic opportunity it can bring to JV. So naturally, I am overall in disagreement with your petition, her petition. But I can step back and see the time and effort it took to organize that. Being a parent takes about 120% of your time, then finding time to work takes up another 80% of your time. So the fact that you put any time into this endeavor should be respected by all. Jersey Village needs more people like Ashley, people who take the next step besides complaining about things they disagree with. We need people to step up and put effort into issues important to them. Sure, we all will not agree on every issue. There will always be people who think it's okay to put pineapple on their pizza. While they are wrong, those who are right should be respectful for their terrible life choices. I encourage all 10 people still listening to me to find a way to build a bridge, find common ground, and see someone else from a different perspective, and let's work to make JV a better place in every aspect, not just politically. Let's find a bond over ways to serve JV in the surrounding area. You may be pro-pineapple and your neighbor isn't, but you can still work together to help clean up a messy property, remove graffiti, or help someone else in need. Also, there were supposed to be yard signs, but because of the .com bubble bust in 2000...
That's your time, James.
No!
Just too much comedy, just too much.
I'm sorry, James. What happened to the yard signs? I need to know that.
It's a backlog. I can't talk.
All right, thank you.
I can ask questions and he can talk as long.
All right. I appreciate it, everyone. Thank you. We're going to move on to to city manager's report. Don't get too excited. Don't get a second bite of that apple. City manager's report, Austin Blaze.
Mayor and councilors, we have the report in front of you. If anybody has any questions, we're happy to answer those.
Any questions for the city manager on his report?
Just curious how we're doing on the schedule on the Wall Street project.
Right now, it seems like they're probably a few days behind, but with the good weather that we had last week, they've been able to keep things moving forward. So we're not too worried about the end of the project not ending on time at this point.
The berm and the Wall Street project pretty much in sync, or what?
Berm is doing well. They've had a few delays with the electrical contractor and the pump station there, but that should be all taken care of, and they should be laying some sod on Thursday. So we hope to be back to 18 holes within the next week or two.
So berm's gonna be finished before the Wall Street project?
Absolutely.
Any other questions for the city manager? Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Well, I guess we don't really have to read this off. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda? Or actually, before we get to that, do we have anyone who'd like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'd now entertain a motion on it.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda? All those against? Any abstentions? The consent agenda passes. That brings us to our regular agenda, starting with G1, consider ordinance number 2021-26, modifying the disabled person exemption, residential homestead exemption, and the over 65 homestead exemption for the City of Jersey Village, amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Jersey Village, Chapter 62, taxation, by amending Article 1 in general, providing a severability clause, and providing an effective date. Austin Blease, City Manager.
Mayor and councilors, during the council retreat with staff, we talked about the homestead exemption, the over 65, and the disabled exemption. We sent information to the council to show what would happen with the various exemption amounts and the future fiscal years for budget reserves. We also have the breakdown of how each of those changes would impact the property owners and the city moving forward as well. We're happy to answer any questions that the council might have. And we do need to, if we're going to make any changes, we need to get that information to HCAD by June 30th.
Okay, so any questions on this for the city manager or general discussion on the ordinance?
First, just a point of information. I want to thank you and Isabel and the staff for preparing just the different scenarios of various amounts. I know that it's not always easy, but it's very helpful for us to make informed decisions based on what we want for tomorrow, but also several years down the road. So that's, I know that in past councils, they haven't always had that information, and this, what you've given us goes down up to 9 years projected based on certain variables. So thank you for that.
So what I'm hearing is you need some kind of consensus tonight on what we're doing.
If the council wants to make any changes, they need to approve it tonight or at least before June 30th, because we have to let HCAD know of the changes on June 30th.
Just curious.
I've made statements before on this. It's like, it's easy to come up here and ask for tax cuts, but if you're not gonna tell us what services you want cut at the same time, what you're gonna give up, then it's putting the burden on us to decide what we're gonna take away from the citizens in order to give them their tax cuts. So my opinion coming into this was that I'd rather go to the budget meeting before making some kind of decision on that, because I understand the budget's gonna be a lot tighter this year. Seeing that, I don't see how I can find anything to cut.
I'll go ahead. And I look at this, and as I approach the exemptions, we have to approach each one separately. So that's kind of the way I look at it. Because of the, as we discussed with Mr. Fields, the volume of disabled, I keep that in parallel with our over 65. I look back and when the over 65 exemption went into effect, and the dates I heard at one point 2009. I think this morning it was 2003, but it's over 10 years ago. Now look at the rate of inflation and the whole purpose of the over 65 exemption. Part of that is to offset what we'd want to do, at least my goal would be offset the growth of property and property values as they've gone up. Since 2005, we've almost doubled the average cost of a home in Jersey Village, according to HCAD, which stands to reason that whatever the exemption was in 2005, I think a starting point for discussion would be we should double that exemption if the purpose is to offset against our those on a fixed income, offset the rising property taxes. So I will suggest at this point that raise the over 65 exemption and the disabled exemption to $100,000.
I think it would be easiest if I discussed them each on their own and heard people's ideas and then see where everybody kind of sits with those. Does that sound good?
Yep.
For the disabled, I agree. The 100,000 seemed to be in line with where I was sitting as well. Any other thoughts on the disabled exemption?
Austin, the worksheet from May has a maximum calculation of 180,000 for disabled. Can it be raised higher than that, or is that a cap?
No, it can go wherever. I just had to pick a number to stop at, so that's the number I picked.
Okay. Because the monetary impact of that is very minor. And we talked about in the budget workshop that if you were to rank need, people with disabilities are absolutely the top of this list. And that would be one of the areas I would want to target first. We've got some other thoughts, but if you're going to just to answer the disabled only question, I think 100,000 is probably a little low. At that point, our cost is nothing. If you went up to, it's 5,000 a year for 100,000. You're only increasing it by 25,000. I think we could easily set that one at 200,000.
What did you say you wanted it up to?
I
From
think
100?
disabled, we could easily set at 200,000 with very, very minor budgetary impact. You're only looking at 180,000, you're only looking at 24,000 as your impact. Not many budget line items are less than that.
I think that's an excellent idea. It's almost a no-brainer really at this point, because that, as you mentioned, that is a very vulnerable population. I mean, fixed income doesn't even begin to describe probably what many are dealing with who've qualified for that exemption, and you know, it can make a big impact in their lives. So I would tend to support that.
I'm good with that.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that particular exemption?
Yeah, I'm in agreement that that should be a top priority.
So I assume we next want to look at, or does anyone else have any thoughts on that? I mean, I think we've got a pretty solid agreement on that.
I'd agree with that.
Okay. Do we want to move on to the over 65 and looking at that with more detail?
I have one question, and I guess it applies to both. If we increase the exemptions today, is there a possibility that a future council can change that and reverse it? So, okay.
Yes.
So this is, we set it whenever.
We set it until a future council decides to change it otherwise.
Every July for the next year.
Okay. Anyone have any thoughts on over 65 and what to do with that?
Before moving on to these others, because they have significant impact in the budget, I would like to get a feel for the last couple budget meetings. We have brought up the possibility of bonds. The council's been very against increasing our debt. I brought up at one of the meetings, what is our credit rating going to look like? And some concern there. We found out that unlike your personal finances, where you occasionally need to pull debt in order to maintain a credit rating, the commercial credit rating really just looks at your ability to pay it off, and maintaining debt is a very low portion of that score. So my interest in pulling a bond is pretty much disappeared, since we're going to have bonds for the next, I think it's 2027 is when we're free of debt. There is very, very little incentive to refinance our bonds. So unless we were going to need money, we're not going to do that. So we really need to look at how this is going to affect our budget in fiscal year 2025 to 2026, because that's where our dip is. And so I'm curious if I stand alone as far as bonds, or if bonds are still on the table, because if one of the spreadsheets provided by Austin, our dip is far less. If we do that refinance, we pull cash out to do street projects and things that need to be done, then we can provide a much larger increase today.
Can I respond? I'm going to respond to Singleton. I'm generally against the idea of debt. I understand the need for it and for safekeeping. And I understand that at this discussion, we need to bring it up in relation to the exemptions and how much cash flow we have in the next few years. What I worry about is the idea that, one, we finance in a way, what we're doing is we're financing the exemptions. If we were to take out debt in order to afford the exemptions. In a way, that's the way my brain is clicking. If we were to go over a certain threshold, that would be not advantageous.
Well, I think one thing we want to make clear, and for those who maybe weren't, since no one, no citizens came to the budget meeting, they probably are sitting there wondering, what are they talking about with bonds? I think what James is asking is simply a question of if some of these projects that we are looking at financing over the next 10 or so years, but particularly the ones in the more, sort of in the 2025, 2026, 2027 area, that if we were to take out debt, which was part of the conversation kind of in just a broad-based sense, that it would resolve some cash flow issues, but it's cash flow issues related to capital projects. It's one thing to say, okay, you're going to take out some debt to finance some capital projects, but it's another thing to say if you were going to take out debt to finance your operations, which would be extremely unwise. So it may not necessarily be, the two things may not necessarily be in conflict if it's merely looking at ways to smooth out cash flow. I totally get it, because that was sort of my knee-jerk reaction when it was first mentioned. But it actually could make some sense in terms of long-term cash flow. That's not to say I'm saying I support or oppose taking out debt. Generally, I tend to find that it's not a good idea unless absolutely necessary. But to get to James's point, I see why it's important here, because if it smooths out your cash flow, it gives you greater flexibility to go ahead and make that move now.
As far as bonds go, for me, it would have to be the project that the bond was supporting. So if it was maybe construction where there wouldn't necessarily be a return on investment for taking out that money, it might not make as much sense to me as maybe doing a bond to move forward with the golf course a little faster or something like that, where return on investment of revenue could be seen a little faster. So I think I would have to know what bond you were talking about, and if it made sense to me, then I would be in support, as long as I felt like the city was also in support of those bonds.
And thankfully, any bond we do is going to go to a vote. And next year, if we need to adjust, we can adjust.
Any other thoughts on either the underlying questions that lead to a change in the over 65 exemption or on the actual amount? Anyone have any other thoughts? Because we really haven't discussed potential amounts yet.
So in 2 years ago is when we raised the homestead exemption.
Correct.
We didn't touch the over 65.
We did. We touched all three. We increased the over 65, I believe, from 50 to 75, the disabled from 25 to 75, and then we increased the homestead exemption from 8% to 14%. Thank you.
We just killed my logic.
Well,
I was going to suggest the possibility of leaving the homestead where it's at and raising the over 65, not quite as dramatically at all, but bringing that one up. Unless we're able to solve the cash flow problem later on, I'm not sure that we're ready to move up completely. I would love to add a couple percentage points if more people can stomach that. But one of the things that we had talked about was the transfer of funds from the golf course or from the general fund to the golf course, and we're still doing that. And that was one of the things, when that went away, we were going to raise the homestead.
Did we transfer any funds from the general fund to the golf course last fiscal year?
We did, yes.
Do we know approximately how much? Okay. And in addition, one of the things I did want to make sure that we brought up, I know we've been working on preliminary property tax numbers. After you look that up, Isabel, if you can kind of let us know what the rough estimated value, because I know the property tax revenues are expected to go up very slightly but not by much. I think about a little more than 1%. Can you give us what that amount is? And while she's looking that up, if anyone else has any other items of discussion on this.
I was just going to make the comment that, this tends to be a very emotional subject for a lot of people. So, and that's the reasoning of my question around, do we set it and forget it? Or is this something that we have to look at on a year-to-year basis? Because one, I don't feel like we need to be playing around with exemptions. I think, once you've set the exemption amounts, it needs to be a longer term type of item. And to James's point, as you start to look further and further out, you start to see that impact on cash flow. And so I would prefer to take a more conservative approach and increase the exemption, but increase it to the amount that doesn't have an impact on that future cash flow.
I do think one thing that we need to keep in mind, and this is what, first of all, I want to point out that we have to keep in mind this system is inherently flawed. I don't think anyone likes the property tax system. No one up here, no one out there. It makes things very difficult to be able to balance the needs of a city along with the needs of taxpayers. And the reason for that is because valuation of property doesn't happen the exact same way for residents as it does for commercial enterprises. There may be some of you out there who have been reading in the news about how property values have been skyrocketing. They've been going wild. And so you may be wondering, how in the world is it that our property tax revenues are only estimated to be up about 1%? That's because the commercial properties had significantly lower valuations, I believe, if I remember correctly. That was most of the sort of the lower valuations were on the commercial side, despite the increased valuations on the residential side. But the problem is, of course, we want to make sure that we're trying to be as balanced in our approach to this as we can. I think we need to recognize that there may be some imbalance in the impact on valuations going forward, particularly on our residents, that this is one of the solutions that are available to us to be able to balance that out a little bit. Isabel, it sounds like you have some answers for us.
Yes, the transfer last year was 169,937. And according to the certified estimates, the increase will be only 1.46%.
Okay, and do we know what the approximate amount of that 1.46% is?
The approximate.
You gave me the percentage. Do we know what the absolute value, you said it was an increase of
1.46%.
Do we know what the amount is, the difference between last year and this year?
Yes, it will go from the projected for 2020 was 1.105. It will go to 1.121. 1.121 billion. Yeah, 1.105 to 17753. That's a taxable value in 2020. 2021, 1,121,313,888.
Oh, that's okay, I see.
Yeah.
But that's the, well, do we know what, not the value, but the actual revenues?
The actual revenues, I have to calculate it.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. I'm trying to see how much, what the increase in revenues from last year would be. So if we're looking at the total impact, kind of looking at compared to what the increase.
You mean total property tax?
Yeah, in terms of the property tax. In other words, if you were looking at saying staying property tax neutral, what would it take to do that using the exemptions?
So the golf course transfer is 169,000 from last year?
169,937, almost 170,000.
Austin, we're going to make a transfer this year, right?
Yeah, we have a transfer budgeted in the amount of 345,000. We don't know if revenues are significantly higher than we thought they were going to be. We shouldn't have to transfer quite that much, but the burn project is eating into our revenues as well. So I'm not even going to venture a guess as to what I think that final number will come back to be. I don't think it'll be that high, but I can't give you a good guesstimate right now.
Bouncing a lot of these numbers. There's a whole lot of numbers, so instead of trying to explain it, I think I'm falling more in line with the 100,000.
And the revenues for the property taxes, we send information to Harris County, and they're going to give us a preview before June 30, before we file our budget. So we should have some answers. So I sent her an email today, so probably I will follow up with her tomorrow.
Well, it's a little bit of a, not too helpful for us in terms of making a decision on this, since that's when the deadline is for us to have to submit it. I'll be honest, I think, I do think the disabled exemption is very important. I do think the over 65 exemption is important as well, because of the fact you are talking about a group that not entirely, but there is a larger portion than the average population that are on fixed incomes, that maybe as was mentioned, the fact that you have valuations going up over and over and over again over time, but their exemptions are generally fixed unless changed by us. The homestead exemption, that goes up along with the value of the property. So if the value of the property goes up, that exemption goes up. So I do think that at the very least, our main focus needs to be, I think the disabled exemption is a phenomenal bump up. I don't know that we can do anything quite to that extent with the over 65, but we certainly, I think if we're looking at how to balance this out, I do think the over 65 exemption is another one that needs to be looked at with some increased focus.
And when you look at these, we're talking about 100,000, raising the over 65 up to 100,000, which is an impact to the city's budget of 155,000 for the year. It's an impact to your over 65 budget of $15 a month. It's amazing how the numbers work and the impact, you're barely going to feel it, but I think that's pretty close to the limit because of the future. And Sherry brings up excellent points of we don't want to bounce around every year. I have no problem moving up every year, but I don't ever want to have to, we're not going to be able to do that this year.
Nor do we want to get into a position where we're then increasing exemptions and then raising tax rates. So
if we're good with a motion, then I'll give a motion.
I'm open to anything at this point, unless anyone else has any other ideas, any other things that they want to add onto this.
I think I hear some form of consensus on the disabled, a little bit on the over 65. Do we want to broach the subject on the? Have we already talked about the?
I don't think we discussed that one yet.
The total exemption, or the homestead rather.
Yeah, does anyone have any thoughts on how that should be touched, or if it should be at all? I mean, I will say I have been a big advocate of maximizing it, but at the same time, we also, frankly, I was a little surprised that property values did not go way up. I mean, we know kind of why. This is sort of a delayed impact from the pandemic. I'm hopeful that it will rebound, and certainly if we continue to press forward with our economic development efforts, it's definitely going to rebound. But when you're talking about the fact that properties get taxed based on a valuation that has to do with demand, has to do with things like value of property has a lot to do when you rent it out. It has to do with rental income. It has a lot to do with the amount of inventory and equipment and a lot of other things, more so than just things like home demand, which has been completely off the charts. That will eventually rebound, but obviously it took a big hit this past year. So I think that's something we have to keep in mind, and that's a challenge that we're having to face. And I don't know that we could do as much on the standard exemption as we would like. But if we really even did anything small, if we're looking at even a 2% increase, that's an $85,000 impact to the budget on top of if we were to go with the 100,000 and then the 100,000 on the over 65, and then if we were to go up to 200,000 on the disabled, we're adding up to about about 180 already. So you're talking about then closer to 260, 270,000 by the time you get to, if you even look just at a 2% increase.
I'll keep it short, Gary. Anything we were going to put towards Homestead, I'd rather put towards over 65.
Can I make a point on property tax, or the homestead exemption is, we're talking about increased property taxes because the home value is going up and stuff. And yeah, I can understand home values going up and increasing your taxes, but at the same time, your city costs are going up with salaries and cost of materials on your capital improvement projects. How are you offsetting that? Are you then going ahead and decreasing the homestead exemption? You're never doing that. So I don't understand the logic that's being applied here, because I don't want to see my city go into decay. And this action tonight, to me, is going the wrong direction. When we did this 2 years ago, we gave a pretty nice bump to most of the citizens. And I didn't get any kind of comments from anybody. About all I got was more comments out here that we should increase it even more. So there was no appreciation really for what we did. And I'm not sure there'll be any appreciation after we do this tonight. But I can see how it would cause our city to start decaying. And that is something I'm dead set on fighting against.
Well, I don't think anyone at this dais is looking to cause our city to decay. I understand that that's your position, but I think that as a council, we can also manage it quite well. Where if this city is on the verge of success or decay over a matter of $200,000, we got much bigger issues. If we can't handle $200,000, we need to go back and rethink how we're budgeting and how we're approaching that.
What I'm seeing is a tighter budget than what we had 2 years ago.
It is going to be tight.
I haven't seen anybody take a look at the budget in order to judge how much of a cut they're giving, because this all seems like gut feeling actions.
I will be more than happy to sit down with you and the rest of council for the 2, maybe 3 days, and we'll work that out during our budget hearings.
Yeah, we're fixing to do that next month.
Yeah, that's right. And trust me, I would much rather have this discussion in that context. We could probably talk to our state rep about how we can fix that problem to make it a little bit easier for cities to be able to actually have some ability to plan while making these decisions. It's kind of dumb that we have to make this decision tonight when we don't even have a budget set until next month. We don't even have a hearing on it until after that. We don't approve it until even later. But unfortunately, that's what we're dealing with right now, and I think that it's worth trying to make an effort to provide some sort of tax break, considering that this council also allowed the tax bills to increase substantially, particularly between 2014, 2015, and a little bit during 2016. We're really kind of trying to ratchet back what was allowed to inflate over the several years. So I get that it might cause us to have to do a little bit of work on the budget side, but I think it's something that we can handle.
I agree with that, but I would really hope that if we pass some of these increases and gave some of these breaks, that the city would rally behind us when we had to support some other avenues to bring in some revenue and sales tax. That way, just a rounded greater good.
I agree. I would hope that anyone who is an advocate for property tax relief would be an advocate for the economic development that this city has been engaged in, that they would be an advocate for doing things that try to bring in more businesses, that try to bring in more sales tax, and that allow us to be able to continue to give more tax breaks. We've had a lot of success on that in recent years. It's been a little bit of a challenge recently because everyone kind of had everything on hold during the pandemic. I'm hopeful that things are starting to turn around, and certainly the economy looks to be turning around. But the best way that we can ensure that we're able to manage this going forward is to continue those efforts to bring more business in, to bring more sales tax in, and I think that Jersey Village can do that, but that's something we're going to have to be able to do together as a city. So thank you, that's a good point. Any further discussion, or at this time, if anyone has a motion, I would certainly entertain it at this time.
Mayor, before you go on, just to make sure we're clear on this, is the ordinance proposed for you has 3 sections with 3 different blanks, so 3 different parts of your code are proposed to be changed. But from the discussion, it sounds like only one of them would be. So, in whatever the motion is going to be, I think that you can move to approve the ordinance as presented, with, section 1 reflecting, looks like it's going to be suggested $200,000, but with section 2 and section 3 deleted, unless you're going to make changes there. If you're going to make changes, then just make sure the motion reflects what part of the ordinance you're going to keep and which part you're not going to affect.
Well, I think we have to see what the proposal is, or what the proposed motion is, and fit it in there. I don't know that it's all 3 sections being deleted. It may only be one of them from the sound of it.
That's right. I mean, just
Yeah.
it's whatever works.
Yeah.
We're not approving the ordinance, verbatim, and then you have a blank sitting in there. We need to make sure we cover what you.
Understood. We'll make sure that we strike or fill in whatever we need to based on the proposal. Mayor Pro Tem, are you serving one up?
I would like to make a motion that we approve ordinance 2021-26, striking section 2 and renumbering as needed. In section 1, filling out the value for disabled person exemption as $200,000 of the appraised value of his residence. In the new section 2, over 65 homestead exemption, replacing $75,000 with $100,000 of the appraised value of his residence.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Can I ask questions about that motion before?
Absolutely.
So we're leaving the residential homestead as is. We're increasing the disability homestead exemption, and we're increasing slightly the over 65.
Yes.
That is correct.
Then I will second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All of those against? Any abstentions? The ordinance passes. That brings us to item G2, consider resolution number 2021-41, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Millis Development and Construction LLC for the construction of the gateway and marquee signs. Austin Police City Manager.
Mayor and councilors, we recently went out to bid on phase 2 of the gateway marquee sign projects. Phase 2 would includes gateway signs at North Eldridge and 290, Philippine and the Beltway, Senate Avenue and Seattle Street would get a new marquee. And then small gateways at Jones Road near Wyndham Lake, Senate Avenue at US 290, Jones Road, north of 290, Steepleway, and West Road near 290. Those bids came back with Millis Development being the low bid of $562,529. The contract calls for 160 days for the work to be completed, and we anticipate the work to be done before the end of this calendar year. We're happy to answer any questions that council might have.
Any questions for the city manager?
Austin, who was the contractor we used to build the current signs? It was not Millis.
It was not Millis.
Okay.
Austin, we just talked about what councilperson Shepherd described nicely as an emotional issue to some people, and we're talking about spending over $500,000 on a line item that was designated at close to $1 million last year during budgeting. Just for some historical purposes, can you help address, at least quickly summarize, how we came to $1 million and the difference?
Yeah. So back in February 2018, the council approved the Gateway and Wayfinding Master Plan. Part of that had estimates for all of the signs that we were looking to do. Based upon that, we came up with the estimates of the total project would have been about $1.95 million. So we set aside $1 million in each of the 2 fiscal years. Last year's project was under budget as well. So even considering some potential more expenses on this one. Overall, this project, we had budgeted 2 million. We should not spend more than about 1.3, maybe lower than 1.2.
This is going to seem like a really cheeky question, and it may be a little bit. When we did our projections over time on fund balances, did we account for the fact that a item budgeted at $1 million came in at $562,000?
So for the sake of simplicity and the fact that we haven't updated the spreadsheets for this upcoming fiscal year, we took the fund balances and the projection based upon what was in the council packets for last year. We didn't try to make any changes because would have been a lot to do there.
So the fantastic use of competitive bidding has enabled us to pay for our tax break that we just approved.
The bids were pretty close for this one. We have received 3 bids. This one is the lowest. There was one bid that was substantially higher though, so yeah.
All right,
Now,
well done.
as was reminded to me, this is a one-time cost, and that is a recurring thing, and my concern is about fiscal year 2025 to 2026, so.
That's true. I think it's important also to remember that this is a perfect example of how our city has done a very good job of kind of trying to project out much worse circumstances that maybe would be reality, and so we kind of have to see how that plays out over time. I suspect we'll continue to do that, and it'll work itself out. Any other questions on this item? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion at this time.
I move we approve resolution 2021-41.
I'll second.
I have a motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Yep. All right. All those against? Any abstentions? The resolution passes. Now move on to item G3. Consider resolution number 2021-42, authorizing action for the 2021-2022 health insurance plan year by renewing health insurance plans with Texas Municipal League Intergovernmental Employee Benefits Pool. Austin Blease, City Manager.
Mayor and councilors, since 2009, the city's been a member of TML Health for health insurance. Since that time, our rates have gone up 39%. So that's an average of about 3%. This year, TML Health is switching from United Health to Blue Cross Blue Shield. As such, our plan that we currently have is being switched. They aren't going to offer that one. So our plan will have a lower deductible by $250 and a lower out-of-pocket max by $500. We negotiated a rate increase this year of 1% over last fiscal year. So being a part of TML and TML Health is certainly very beneficial for the city in a lot of different ways. This year, the TML is also offering vision insurance. Vision insurance is one of the things that a lot of employees have asked for and would like to see. I know the council is always receptive and wanting to know what the employees are asking for. So with this year, the total cost to add vision insurance citywide would be $26,000 on the worst case scenario. It would be lower than that depending upon what various plans they took, but $26,000 would be the max cost for the city this year if the council is interested in adding vision insurance. That would become effective along with our health insurance on 10/1. So we have the resolution 21-42 for council consideration to approve health insurance for the upcoming fiscal year.
Thank you, Austin. Any discussion on this item?
If I remember correctly, the employees also pay for a portion, is that correct?
Correct, yep.
Okay.
Two things. One, to question, do we occasionally audit that fee, like go out to an independent broker and see what the cost might be if we went that elsewhere?
The last time we really looked at that would have been probably about 2017 because we had a rough year that year, but we haven't done that since. Every year the increases have been pretty reasonable. I will say that just talking with other city managers, those that are with TML Health Pool have had lower increases than those that have not been.
I will say, I mean, I don't know of any business out there who can say that their health insurance costs only went up by 1% year over year at any point. even more so to the point, I don't know of any business that could say that, over the last 10 years, that the average increase they've experienced is only 3%. That's a pretty amazing thing, and I think it's a benefit of being in an intergovernmental risk pool. It's a really tremendous cost savings. I've had people who are in the insurance industry, who are citizens here in town, who have asked me, hey, have you all ever considered reducing your healthcare costs by joining an intergovernmental risk pool? And I'm like, funny you mentioned that. That's exactly what we do. And they're like, oh, great, good to hear. This is a mechanism that's something that really does provide a lot of cost savings and has clearly been has slowed the growth of costs that everyone else has seen to an unheard of level. So this almost seems like a no-brainer to me, but it's always good every once in a while to go out to the market and just kind of have a little bit of a sanity check, make sure it's all still working. But I would be hard-pressed to believe there's anybody out there, because I think even last time we couldn't find anything that was close. So I don't think in the last 4 years it would have changed much.
Yeah, I remember the last time we looked at it, it was significant difference. It was very obvious which choice to make. It does pain me to realize when I first read this at home, I realized we don't provide vision insurance. How did I ever miss that? Even though vision insurance really isn't insurance, more of a discount plan, but I'm really glad that we're adding that on.
Any other discussion on this item? If not, we could certainly entertain a resolution or a motion at this time.
Move we approve resolution number 2021-42.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those against? Any abstentions? The resolution passes. That brings us to agenda item number G4, consider resolution number 2021-43, awarding the bid and authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Utility Service Company, Inc., a Suez company, for the City of Jersey Village elevated storage tank rehabilitation project at the Congo and Village water plants. Harry Ward, Public Works Director.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item is submitted to you for consideration tonight. These are your two elevated water storage towers in the city. We're required to have them inspected and repaired every 5 years. This is the 5-year mark. We have $500,000 in the CIP to pay for this rehabilitation of the Congo tank. At the same time, there really is no money in there for the other tank, so we have two. What we did do in the past couple of years, though, was get inspections on all the water facilities. There were 2 different inspections done, and each one of them covered the elevated storage. So we actually had 2 experts look at the elevated storage tanks. That's good news. What we did to take advantage of that investment was we pulled all of the specifications that they identified from both inspections for both tanks. We then consolidated them down to the necessary repairs that needed to happen, which were either common sense, highly aesthetic, or just against code. We took out some of the superfluous stuff that was a wish list type thing and not required. We put the whole thing into a bid for releasing to the public. So the winning bid out of about 6 different bids was the Utility Service Company, a Suez company, a very large corporation. They actually came in to to discuss the bid with us. Only one other firm did, so I counted that for them. The way we went about this, just so you know, we did not go low bid on this. This is your city's water supply. We took it extremely seriously, as we always do. So the idea here was to go with safety first and experience first. We made a formula-based bid on this. 40% was the cost, and that's a code item, ordinance item. The other 60% was safety, experience with TCEQ, experience with fellow municipalities. We wanted somebody very close to what we do that's also highly qualified. We think we found that company with the Suez company, and we have a bid of about $214,000 to cover both elevated storage tanks. We have CIP for $500,000, so we'll be restoring almost $300,000 to the bank if this is approved. So this is our 5-year inspection and rehab of your elevated storage. For the next 4 years, we do those internally. So this is your one baseline every 5 years. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Harry. Any discussion on this item?
Yeah, Harry, can you give us some detail as to what work is entailed here? Because I remember it was painted here recently, the one on Village anyway.
4 years ago, I think. Yeah, these are code items where the ladder that goes up the Congo Tower, and specifically on that one, it's faulty. The welds have broken loose. You can rattle the thing. The cage is not firmly fitted around the ladder. Those types of items is where we're coming from when we say safety. So most of it's not painting. We're not painting the entire tower. We're doing spot painting where rust and corrosion has exhibited itself. So that's how we broke the award down. We looked for the things that were code, safety, and damage to the equipment, like corrosion. And in some other cases where they said, well, it'd be nice if you put something here, we kind of pushed that out unless we thought we needed it. So that's kind of where it was. These were mostly non-paint items, largely corrosion-based.
Okay, thank you.
Harry, I think this is great, and I'm glad to know that utility service company Suez is large and reputable in your eyes and everyone's in the industry. My one question is, the inspections were done 3 years ago. I'm sure there's maybe other things. Is there a contingency involved with this in case we have some change orders or some extra items? And how does that work?
Yes, we think we have a good baseline because we're there every day. We have a pretty good feel for what we do need. There's nothing exacerbating the situation we have now. So we feel good that the inspection was done well, even though a year and a half, maybe two has gone by between the two inspections. There was redundancy between the two inspections, as you would expect. There was also non-redundancy, and that's why I said I appreciated having the two inspections. We were able to pull some from one, some from another, and put together a good solid workflow for these folks.
Thank you.
Harry, I noticed that, so you did mention that this was not it wasn't just low bid, and I appreciate that, because for anyone who's kind of wondering, number one, no, we're not required to just take the low bid. We are allowed to consider other factors. And I'm looking at the bid sheet here, and it really wasn't that far off from the low bid, so it's not like it's a significant expenditure. I think it's about $15,000. But it is I'm glad you're looking at safety and just overall experience, because sometimes that can add some value for your money that you might not take into account if you're just going for the absolute low bid. The one thing I was wondering about there was a total budget of $500,000 for this, and all of the bids came in well under that. Do we kind of know what contributed to the disparity there?
Sounds like a good upkeep in the fact that we projected this 5 years ago.
And that may be what it was, just not knowing what the cost would be. That's possible. We also took this approach where maybe in the past you would have just accepted the inspector's report and just said, oh, go fix everything. We didn't take that approach because we didn't think everything had to be fixed. Again, there are some superfluous things in there where if you want a little pretty, make it here. If you want pretty, make it there. We didn't go with pretty. We went with good, functional, quality water supply, and that was our number one thing. In the next 3 years, as we do self-inspections, we can take care of any other little superfluous things as we go at very, very little to no cost.
Excellent.
Sounds like a good process to me.
Any other discussion on this? I would entertain a motion at this point.
Move we approve resolution number 2021-43.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Those against? Any abstentions? The resolution passes. That brings us to item G5. Consider ordinance number 2021-27, amending the general fund budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2020 and ending September 30th, 2021, in the amount not to exceed $35,000 by transferring $21,000 from line item 01393001 salaries and $14,000 from line item 01393055 health insurance to line item 01396516 parks and landscaping projects within the general fund budget. Robert Bassford, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This budget amendment request comes on the heels of a project outlined. The Texas Department of Transportation has agreed to provide, plant, and maintain for up to 1 year vegetation between Clark Henry Hike and Bike Trail and the Beltway 8, as well as the area north of Philippine Street between the Sound Wall and the Beltway 8. This project details running a water line from the nearest meter, which is on Ecuador Street, the dead end, right before the bayou, along the hike and bike trail to where the vegetation would be so that they can tie in for their drip line. This project will also include a few tie-ins if we ever desire to install irrigation at Clark Henry in the future, and the GPS coordinates will be saved. The project not to exceed estimate from Mickey Service came back at a price of not to exceed $35,000, and we will utilize the additional money from the park supervisor salary that was not paid to cover this project.
Great. Any discussion or questions for Robert?
Looking forward to this beautification project. This will be awesome.
One question I do have, Robert, is this vegetation on TxDOT land? Is that why they're talking about maintaining it?
So essentially, when they cut down, all of that growth, they decided they're planting as a part of throughout the entire county. They're planting trees, and so they've worked with us previously to an agreement to plant the vegetation that we desire in the location that we desire, but also to assist us in the additional maintenance required to keep new vegetation sustainable. And once it reaches a year life, then we can go to a more routine management opportunity, but with the stipulation that we provided water for them. So yes, essentially is it their right of way where we'll plant? I can't, Austin, I might defer to you on that one, but I don't know what was agreed upon when they cut all that whole area down. We have not placed where the trees will go yet. We will go out with TxDOT and strategically place that once the time comes.
Isn't that a county right away?
Sorry, I missed something.
We're trying to figure out the
land.
I guess my question was, I was kind of trying to understand sort of the dynamic happening here. Is it TxDOT right of way where all of this vegetation is being replanted? And we're just agreeing to provide them with some water if they agree to maintain it?
Right, so my understanding is that TxDOT would put something in along the right of way. We would like to see something better than what they are going to put in, so we're helping to make sure that it gets watered and actually takes root and holds and stays versus some of the other things that they would normally put along the right of way.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's just a little cost to try to upgrade all of that right there where where Beltway is.
Correct. Yep.
Instead of just the row planning that they typically do.
I've seen some of their planning in that area. It's not great, but if we can upgrade that seems like a smart idea.
So TxDOT just sticks it in the ground and hopes for rain, or is that what I'm hearing?
No. Our water line will cap it, and they'll tie into it and install drip irrigation.
So they're installing the irrigation.
Yes, we're getting the source, which is a 4-inch line from Ecuador to the curve of the hike and bike. It's close to the Beltway, and they will tie into that, install the drip irrigation for us.
Okay.
But I assume, kind of to Gary's question, ordinarily, if we didn't offer this, they would try to put in something that would hopefully survive
Correct.
Just from rainwater.
Correct.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
My understanding, like if you see on the highways, they just plant everything and something's going to survive, right? So
Correct. That's exactly what they would do, and we're getting a little better product there as well as north of Philippine.
Okay.
and there is already a source of water in the Philippines. So
Highways are good at landscaping, room to improve.
Any further discussion on this item or questions for Robert? If there are none, I'd entertain a motion at this time.
Move we approve ordinance 2021-27.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All of those against? Any abstentions? The ordinance passes. Thank you, Robert.
thank you.
Okay, that brings us to mayor and council comments. I'm going to start on this end this time. Councilmember Mitchum.
I had the pleasure today of visiting every department in an all-day adventure. It was great. I got to see the fire department, the police department, Parks and Rec, meet with financing, public works, and really see the ins and outs and in-betweens, and meet a lot of city employees. And we've got some really good people working for us, and it was really lovely to see the behind the scenes, and I really appreciate it.
Councilmember Shepherd.
I would just like to personally thank all of the officers and the dispatchers that won their awards tonight. They sacrifice a lot to keep the city safe, and it's great that we've rewarded them and been able to show them how much we care and appreciate them.
Councilmember Wasson.
Chief Bitts, Chief Riggs, thank you for your effort and for your people's effort. You got awesome teams working for you and for all of us. Next meeting will be the budget meeting, July 19th, which means Independence Day comes before that. So let's celebrate our freedoms. And we got one heck of a party going on in Jersey Village. So looking forward to that.
Councilmember Singleton.
Chiefs, thank you for bringing everybody in for the award. It's fantastic that you have an award program, and that was certainly a event worth recognizing. July 4th, the parade starts from here at 10:30 all the way over to Clark Henry Park. There's going to be a barbecue cook-off. It's definitely one of the larger events in the city, and we'd love to have everybody come out. On a slightly more serious note, we don't live in the city of Houston, all for good reasons, but we do get affected by them. Tomorrow, Wednesday, I think it's Wednesday, City of Houston is considering a increase in their water rates of 63% over 5 years. And if that is approved, it is going to affect everyone here. So reach out to your City of Houston council members and talk to them about the infrastructure problems that they are suffering and we're going to have to end up paying for.
Councilmember Wumenhorst.
I don't have anything to add to what anybody else has said, so I'm going to go with no comment.
All right. Well, I even though I am not a new council member, I did tag along for the new council member orientation today that were intended by council members Mitchum and Shepherd. It had been 4 years since I did mine, and there have been a lot of changes to our infrastructure and the folks here, and I thought it was a good idea to get a little refresher in. And so I want to thank all of the departments for taking time out of their busy day. You could tell they were scrambling back and forth with all of the things that they have to do, but they were able to still take time out to show us a few things, and it was really great to be able to see all of the improvements that have been made in our city. And particularly we got to spend a little bit of time looking at the golf course berm and the work being done at the Wall Street projects, and that is all coming along very nicely. It's projects that were very much needed, and I'm very excited to see those moving along, and hopefully they'll be, soon enough we'll have that infrastructure in place to provide a little bit more protection for the homes in those areas. So I want to just thank all of the folks in that area who are putting up with some of the inconveniences right now. Everyone has been very understanding about it, and I think it's really appreciated that that we're making that happen. So I would also echo the congratulations to the recipients of awards tonight. It's very well deserved, and we really appreciate their work for our community. And also to echo Councilmember Wasson's suggestion that everyone come out for the 4th of July parade. Hopefully the weather will hold out, but really looking forward to seeing everyone out and celebrating our country's independence. And I understand Parks and Rec has a lot of plans for some exciting stuff happening at Clark Henry Park. So I encourage you to come out and check it out. And so with that, we will go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone.